Vote for the American workers, the Medicare recipient, and the unemployed. Vote for this motion to instruct, and I yield back the balance of my time. And, Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to yield for the purposes of balancing the remainder of the time to my good friend from New York, Joe Crowley, a member of the Ways and Means Committee.
Without objection, the gentleman from New York will control the time. Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the motion to instruct, and I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
I would just say to my good friend from Maryland, we just voted on the Senate amendment. They were rejected by this House. Just yesterday, Minority Leader Pelosi told the media, "I don't think we should go to conference." That's a quote. In those same reports, the Minority Leader said that if the House passes a motion to go to conference on the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act, she would not appoint any House Democrats to participate in the negotiations. Set aside for a moment that a conference committee is the established way for resolving differences between the House and the Senate. And it's an idea that was best articulated by Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers and someone who provided the foundation for the rules of this House. Set aside the fact that Democrats are, with 2 weeks left before critical programs expire, refusing to work. Instead, let's just focus on what the leader of House Democrats said. The Minority Leader declared that she would not appoint any House Democrats to a conference committee. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has echoed those same comments. And I ask then, who are the Democrats seeking to instruct with this motion? If the Democrats won't even appoint conferees, how can they instruct conferees? Clearly, this is nothing more than a partisan political stunt that keeps us from doing what the President has asked us to do and what House Republicans agreed to do: pass a one-year extension of the payroll tax holiday and a one-year extension of unemployment benefits. Turning to the substance of the motion to instruct for a minute, it seems like we've already debated this today. The motion asks the House to recede to the position of the Senate, meaning the deeply flawed bill that would sunset in 2 months and that payroll providers, job providers, experts have said would be administratively unworkable, and that even the administration concedes would pose challenges for employers. I urge defeat of this motion to instruct, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just sitting here, I was...
Gentleman yield himself such time as he may consume.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I'll yield myself
recognized.
much time as I consume. Just sitting here, I was contemplating the end of the year, and that at the end of the business that we will conduct today, men and women from both sides of the aisle will pass each other in the well or in the hallway, and we'll wish each other health for the new year. We'll wish each other goodness, happiness. We'll all look forward to going back to our home districts and spending time with our family, with our friends, looking back on the year, assessing the good things that have happened, some of the not so good things, but primarily focusing on the good things that have happened to all of us this year. And the word that comes to mind when I often say to people, I wish you peace. I wish you peace in the new year. I wish you a peaceful mind is what I'm suggesting. That we can go home, relax. Nothing that we are doing today will give peace of mind to the middle class in this country. Nothing that we will do today will give them that peace of mind. And I think that is more than regrettable. It's unacceptable that men and women in this country, hard-working, middle-class people who are desperately trying to keep their homes, to afford education, college education for their children, to afford health care, to be able to see their doctor, who are trying to put food on the table, pay the heat bill, maybe afford the rent, are struggling. This is not a story that is only in my district. This is a story of middle America in every district, be they Democrat or held by a Republican. Now, what we've seen over the past few months is a complete turnaround. 2 months ago, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle rejected the President's proposal for a payroll tax cut for the middle class. And now we're coming to the end of the year, and we're running out of time. And my friends on the other side of the aisle have had a conversion. They now see the wisdom to extending this payroll tax. But now you're criticizing us because we have a bill before us that has passed in a bipartisan way in the Senate, 89 votes, that will extend this payroll tax reduction for the middle class for an additional 2 months. Now, I can understand if that was all we were going to do, you can complain about it. But we'll have the opportunity to come back within the next 2 months and do it for the rest of the year. Quite frankly, we can make it permanent as far as I'm concerned. But we can come back and do that. We ought not be squabbling about time. That's only 2 months. Don't pretend that you're working on behalf of the middle class. Don't pretend you are the working class hero. You're not. You're not. Cheryl Williams, a constituent of mine from the Bronx, one of the many middle class workers in my district, will have to pay an extra $1,000 a year to afford heating oil for their home if they do not get this tax decrease that they have been hoping for and they've been reading about that is going to happen. Now all of a sudden it may not happen. I just want to remind my colleagues, this is not cotton candy economics. One of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, Mr. Ryan, used the term, this is cotton candy economics. This is not cotton candy economics, Mr. Speaker. This is bread and butter economics for my constituents and for the middle class. The word disingenuous doesn't do justice to what's happening here today. This is either an extension of a $1,000 tax credit or it is a tax cut or it's not. As simple as that. This is either a tax cut for the middle class or it's not. A no vote is a vote against a middle class tax cut. It is simply that simple. Don't do this now. Give people, the American people, the peace of mind they deserve this holiday season. Let them know that this tax cut will be extended. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Michigan.
At this time, Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from Ohio, the Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House is recognized.
Let me thank my colleague for yielding. And as I was attempting to eat my lunch, I heard my name invoked more than once about what I did and what I didn't do. I just want all my colleagues to know that the President asked us to extend the payroll tax credit for a year, asked us to extend unemployment benefits, and asked us to extend the payment schedule, the current payment schedule for doctors who treat Medicare patients. My colleagues and I, on a bipartisan basis last week, passed such a bill. The same kind of bill that was requested by the minority leader and the minority whip and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. This bill was going to cost about $200 billion. We found reasonable offsets to make sure that we were taking care of the Social Security Trust Fund and not depleting it unnecessarily. As I said, the bill passed the House with a bipartisan vote. Unfortunately, our colleagues on the other side of the Capitol decided to do what happens around here all too often. Too hard to figure it out. We're getting close to Christmas. We're going to leave. We're going to punt. And we're going to send a 2-month bill over. Now, my colleague from New York was arguing for what's basically a $1,000 tax cut for the average American family. And I'm here to say to my colleague, it's exactly what we're fighting for. As I see the debate today, you're arguing for a $166 tax cut because it's only for 2 months. I'm going to give the average American family a $1,000 tax cut. And that means doing this for 12 months as the President requested. Who doesn't believe that if we don't do this now, then when we get to February 28th, guess where we'll be? We'll be right here doing the same thing that we're doing right now. I just think the American people expect us to do our work. We've got 10 days to do our work. We can resolve the differences between the House and Senate bill. Everybody wants this extended for a year, but it just happens to be inconvenient for some to try to resolve it at this point. Why? Because we're getting close to the holidays. My colleagues and I are here and prepared to do our work. We've just made a motion to go to conference with the Senate. As my colleagues know, this is the regular order of how Congress works. The House passes a bill, the Senate passes a different bill, we go to conference to resolve the differences. And all we're asking is that our colleagues on the other side of the Capitol come back to town, sit down and resolve our differences, and let's do this once, and let's do it the right way for once. So I would ask my colleagues, we can turn the rhetoric down. We don't have to get overly excited. There's no disagreement here. There's no disagreement at all about the fact that everyone wants to extend this for the next year. The only question is, when do people want to do it? Some want to kick the can down the road and wait till February, and on February 28th we'll be sitting here looking at each other the same way. Why don't we just do it now and give the American people a real Christmas present? I yield back.
Gentleman from New York.
Mr. Speaker, we had 3 months to do this bill. Unfortunately, we waited to the last 2 weeks to take this bill up. It's unfortunate. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Israel.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank my very good friend, the distinguished gentleman from New York. Mr. Speaker, with all the respect in the world, the Speaker of the House said we shouldn't kick the can. What they are doing, Mr. Speaker, is they are kicking the middle class in the stomach. This is a partisan middle class mugging. The only part of the middle class tax cut that the Republicans don't like is the middle class part, which is why they are trying every obfuscation, every flip-flop, every flim-flam, every excuse they can come up with. The latest excuse is, we ought to go to regular order. I cannot imagine a single American opening up their paychecks in January, seeing that there's $100 or $200 less, and saying, if only they had gone to regular order. If only they had gone to a House-Senate conference. A House-Senate conference? I'm sure that my Tea Party Republican colleagues campaigned on coming to Congress to support regular order and go to conference for the American people. No, they came here saying they wanted tax cuts. But when it comes time to give tax cuts, suddenly they're saying, no, we don't need tax cuts. We need a House-Senate conference to debate the tax cuts. Give me a break. The American people want two things from this Congress, Mr. Speaker. They want tax relief for the middle class. They want a Congress that can compromise. House Democrats gave both. House Republicans said no to both. House Democrats wanted a full 1-year extension of the middle class tax cut. All we said is, let people who are making over $1 million pay a small surcharge on the dollars over $1 million. House Republicans said no. We want to take it out of Medicare cuts. House Democrats said our partisan differences should not cost middle-class taxpayers. House Republicans said no. The more you say no, the more it costs the middle class. I thank the gentleman.
From Michigan.
Earlier, the gentleman from Maryland, the minority whip, said the Senate gave us time. No, the Senate gave themselves a vacation. The House is prepared to work to ensure Americans don't face a tax hike in 2 months. And with that, I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Harris.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for yielding some time. The Americans who are watching, they're probably going to have a deja vu. Last time they watched Congress in action on a contentious bill near the Christmas holiday was in 2009, when the Senate had plenty of time to come into town and pass the Obamacare bill. And the House, under the leadership of what is now the minority party, thought it was just fine to just do whatever the Senate wanted. How'd that work out for you, America? Today we're actually going to do what we should be doing, which is going to conference and compromising with the Senate. Now, the motion is to concur with the Senate amendments, to recede. The Senate amendments say 60 days. Mr. Speaker, that's not kicking the can down the road. That's barely nudging the can down the road. And why doesn't that work? Because as a physician, I will tell you, the real danger to our seniors is passing something that's short-term, time and time again, which the 111th Congress did. And I work with these docs. What they tell you is, and especially in rural areas where physicians are in shortage, they say, you know what, if you're only going to give me a 2-month or a 1-month or a 2-week extension, this has been done, I'm going to have to stop seeing Medicare patients because I want to take care of Medicare patients, but that uncertainty that those short-term extensions create, I can't deal with in my practice. Under this, you know, if a senior wants to see a specialist, especially a good specialist, they might have to wait 2 or 3 months. They're going to have to wait until after this extension. That specialist is going to say, I don't know what's happening in March. I'm not going to see a patient. You know, the minority whip says, you know, the Republicans pretended to support a tax cut. I ask America, let's look at the record. We had a vote last week on the tax cut. Go look and see which party rejected the tax cut for middle-class Americans. The gentleman from New York says we pretend to be for the working class. America,
an additional 30 seconds.
I would ask that America go to house.gov and look at the vote last week. Which party rejected a 1-year-long middle-class tax cut and which party was in the majority to move that tax cut? The minority doesn't want a 1-year tax cut. They made it clear in last year's vote. The Senate made it clear in this action they took last week. Yes, we're going to drag them kicking and screaming to a conference. That's too bad that that's what the legislative process has come to. We need to support going to conference and compromise.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I inquire as to how much time we have remaining.
Gentleman from New York has 17.5 minutes. Gentleman from Michigan has 24 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself just 10 seconds. Mr. Speaker, by rejecting the Senate tax cut package, Mr. Harris's constituents in Queen Anne's County, Maryland, will see a tax increase of $1,503 in 2012. With that, I yield a minute to the gentleman from Vermont.
Gentleman from Vermont is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. I thank the gentleman. Mr. Speaker, for the 4th time this year, Congress has failed to reach a consensus on a significant issue that will affect the lives of every American and imperil our fragile economic recovery. Today, we are on the brink of imposing the consequences of this dysfunctional Congress on those who can least afford it. If we do not act today, taxes will go up on 160 million middle and low-income Americans. If we do not act today, hundreds of thousands of Americans will lose the safety net of unemployment coverage in the middle of the worst recession since the Great Depression. And if we don't act today, the doctors who are caring for senior citizens will have their pay slashed, placing in jeopardy their ability to provide that care. This is an unacceptable situation to the American people. We should be here as long as it takes to get this done, and we should be voting, yes or no. Is the majority more committed to gridlock than progress? Once again, for the 4th time in a year, the answer appears to be yes. The people we represent deserve better. I yield back.
Gentleman from Michigan.
I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Labrador.
Gentleman from Idaho is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I want the American people to understand something very clearly. This debate today is not about policy. It is only about politics. It has always been about politics. Number one, there is no Senate bill. Our friends on the other side keep talking about a Senate bill. There has never been a Senate bill. There was only a Republican House bill. That's the only thing that we had. That Republican House bill was passed with a bipartisan majority. It passed this House, and it went to the other House, and the Senate decided to amend it. When they amended it, they took out everything that we wanted here in the House to extend this payroll tax cut. And we decided today to reject the amendment. One of the gentlemen from the other side said that some of us did not campaign on going to conference. You know what? We did campaign on one thing. We campaigned on following the Constitution and doing the things that the Constitution requires us to do. If you go back to your civics classes, it's very simple. The House passes a bill, the Senate passes something different. We go to conference. That's what the American people understand. You ask any third grader about civics lessons, and they will tell you that's the way it's supposed to work. The reason they're objecting to it today is because that's never the way that they have done it, because their idea of compromising is making sure that our ideas are off the table and their ideas are the only ones that stay on the table. That's not compromise, that's capitulation. And that's what we are unwilling to do. And you're upset. You're upset because you're unwilling to work for the American people during this week and during the next week. We just voted on the Senate amendments. We turned them down. It's really important for the American people to understand that we have turned down the Senate amendments.
I yield the gentleman an additional 30 seconds.
The Democrats only want to have a political tool to keep hitting us over the head again and again and again. They want to spend the next 2 months debating this issue. If the middle class does not get this tax cut, they will only have one party to blame, Mr. Speaker, and that party is the Democrats. Thank you very much.
Members are reminded to address their remarks to the chair. Gentleman from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I just remind Mr. Labrador that constituents in Lewistown, Idaho will see a tax increase of $860 in 2012 because of the games your party is playing. With that, I would yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from Nevada, Ms. Berkeley.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman from New York for yielding. Mr. Speaker, let's be clear on what's happening here today. With thousands of Nevadans who are struggling to make ends meet, House Republicans are trying to sentence this middle-class tax cut to death by committee, by conference. Instead of allowing an up-and-down vote, House Republicans are trying to kill this middle-class tax relief bill by burying it in one more Washington bureaucracy. Death by committee, conference. The American people have had enough of these cynical Washington games. I know that I certainly have. If House Republicans don't want a middle-class tax cut, they should have the courage to stand up and vote no. 1.2 million Nevadans who will see their taxes go up would be grateful to know the truth. 28,000 unemployed Nevadans who are unemployed through no fault of their own, they would appreciate knowing the truth why their unemployment benefits are going to disappear on January 1st. So why won't the Republicans do this? Why won't they just come clean and express their opposition to middle-class tax relief and extension of unemployment benefits? Washington Republicans had no problem passing taxpayer giveaways to big oil companies making record profits. They had no problem passing tax breaks for corporations that ship jobs overseas. They had no problem passing a bill to kill Medicare by turning it over to private insurance companies. But when it comes to tax cuts for middle-class families, they say, no, no, we can't do this. We have to send it back to another committee, conference. Let's kill it. Mr. Speaker, it's time to stand up for the middle class and the unemployed in this country, in the state of Nevada. I urge my colleagues to reject this Republican ploy. Let's not send this middle-class tax cut to die in another Washington bureaucratic committee. Let's pass the bipartisan Senate bill and help our fellow citizens when they need our help the most. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Michigan.
At this time, I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Flake.
Gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. You know, 1 year ago, Mr. Speaker, many of us stood at this chamber and pleaded with the leadership on both sides of the aisle not to put this payroll tax holiday in place. It was bad policy to put it in place, and it's bad policy to extend it. By the end of this year, we will have taken $250 billion from the Social Security Trust Fund. And for what purpose? In our candid moments, we must confess that this effort is more toward securing votes than securing economic growth. We may point fingers across the aisle, but it's a pox on both of our houses. Democrats
paint themselves as champions of Social Security, yet they blissfully endorse taking another $120 billion out of the Social Security Trust Fund. We Republicans paint ourselves as fierce guardians of the public purse, yet we're eager to pretend that the payroll tax holiday is paid for by fleeting fees and phantom spending cuts. We keep hearing that we're kicking the can down the road. We're $15 trillion in debt. 10,000 baby boomers retire every year into a program that is already running in the red. Mr. Speaker, we're out of road. The responsible thing to do is to not extend this payroll tax holiday for 2 months or for 12 months. I yield back.
Gentleman from New York.
I appreciate the gentleman's honesty. With that, I will yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from Virginia.
Gentleman is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
I thank my friend from New York. Mr. Speaker, this is shameful. Shame, shame, shame. Who are we kidding? The Republican leadership is ignoring an 89-10 vote in the United States Senate, and they want us to believe they support the underlying bill of 12 months. That's not what they've said all year long. The Speaker, who was just here a few minutes ago, dismissed the payroll tax itself as gimmick. The minority leader has said, the majority leader said there are better ways to grow the economy. Tell that to the 160 million Americans whose taxes will increase in January 1. Republicans consistently chipped away at Medicare and managed to eliminate it completely in a voucher system with the Ryan budget earlier this year. Tell that to the 48 million seniors who are at risk if we don't take care of the doctor's bill through the SGR. And Republicans have made no secret of their desire to gut unemployment insurance, despite the fact that it actually helps keep the economy moving during down times. More than 2.3 million Americans will lose benefits if we don't pass this bill, and millions more will have their benefits reduced. Mr. Speaker, are we to believe all of a sudden that the House Republicans have had some kind of miraculous metanoia and are ready to compromise? That is laughable, and the actions of our colleagues on the other side frankly make Ebenezer Scrooge look like a charitable humanitarian today. I yield back to the gentleman from New York.
Gentleman from Michigan.
At this time, I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Florida, Mr. Sutherland.
Gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
I'd like to thank the gentleman from Michigan for yielding time. Mr. Speaker, if we ask the American people what they want, I think it would be glaring. Do they want the House bill that protects seniors' access to doctors for 24 months, or do they want the Senate version for 2 months? Do they want federal unemployment benefits extension for 13 months, or do they want that for 2 months? Do they want payroll tax cut extensions for 12 months or for 2 months? Do they want a payroll tax break for $1,000, or do they want it for $167? Do they want pay freezes for members of Congress and for federal workers, or do they want those freezes to go away, like the Senate version states? Do they want unending unemployment and food stamp benefits for millionaires, or do they want that to continue? Then they would want the Senate version. Do they want requiring Social Security numbers for refundable child tax credits, or do they want that to go away? You know, this is a good one. Do they want to prevent access to welfare benefits at strip clubs and liquor stores like the House version we passed last week, or do they want that to go away in the Senate version? I think if we ask the American people, I think their answer would be glaring and clear. They want certainty. Right now, the Senate version throws the American family a life preserver drifting in a sea of uncertainty. The House version reaches out to them and pulls them out of that sea of uncertainty, putting them in a lifeboat. I ask the American people, you want a life preserver or do you want a lifeboat? Any common sense American would say, put me in the boat that extends this for 1 year rather than 2 months. This isn't difficult. This is common sense. I yield back.
Gentleman from New York.
Speaker, I would just remind Mr. Sutherland that failure to pass this bill will potentially mean an increase of $879 to his constituents in Bay County, Florida. And with that, I would like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Fattah.
Let me thank the gentleman. Let me thank the gentleman for yielding. And in this Christmas season, let me wish all of my colleagues a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, And for our country, there is good news. It has just been reported that unemployment has dropped in 43 states. This is the most states that we've seen unemployment drop in 8 years. The policies that have been put in place by President Obama is working. Car sales are up, home starts are up, the stock market is above 12,000. How better off would we have been if we would just get the majority here in the House to agree to work with the President? We have 3 caucuses out of 4 that have agreed to move forward on keeping in place the Obama tax cuts that make work pay. That is a tax cut on their payroll taxes. And we have 1 caucus that's decided they want to go their own way, that somehow they know better, they want to go their own way, but the other 3 caucuses have agreed. Let's put in place a continuation of this tax cut, and let's work towards a 1-year extension. I hear my colleagues complaining that they didn't get everything they want. Well, there are going to be Christmas trees all over our country, and there are going to be presents under those trees. But we can't always get everything that we want. We need to have common sense and an ability to cooperate. I would ask my colleagues, my friends, in the holiday spirit, can't we come together and help this President who's lifting this economy through policies that are working? 43 states, unemployment's dropped, the most we've seen since 2003. These policies work. Let's keep them in place, and let's ask our Republican friends to come on. Let's put partisanship aside, put America first, because counting against this country is a bet that you really shouldn't place. America's coming back, and it's coming back stronger than ever. Thank you very much.
Gentleman from Michigan.
I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Tipton.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Our colleague on the Democrat side is citing the amount of tax increase that Americans will have inflicted on them. That's what we're talking about as well. We have an opportunity here, Mr. Speaker, to stand up today for the American people. And a very clear choice. 2 months or 12 months. Easy math. We talk about waiting till February. It'll be followed by March. The same challenges affecting American people right now will be present then. This is our opportunity as a legislative body to stand up for the American people for a change rather than politics as usual. We can't afford to let them down. The American people, American business, American seniors deserve some certainty. Certainty that we can provide. Out of this House, we passed bipartisan legislation. The Senate passed their version. It now needs to go to conference so the American people can be better served. This issue is not one that we should be debating, but one we should be standing together as Republicans and Democrats, because this isn't a political issue. This is about standing up for the American people. This is our opportunity to do just that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Gentleman from New York.
It inquires to how much time we have, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from New York has 10.5 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Michigan has 16.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just remind Mr. Tipton that his constituents in Pueblo, Colorado, will potentially see an increase in taxes of $780 next year if this bill is not enacted. And with that, I will yield 1 minute to Ms. Lee from California.
Gentlelady from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the gentleman for yielding and for his leadership. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to the political games that the Republicans continue to play. We know that an extension of unemployment insurance is one of the most effective ways to get our economy going again, and it's the right thing to do, especially because people are just living on the edge right now. Yet the GOP is ready to cut unemployment benefits for 2.2 million Americans. They're ready to raise taxes on 160 million Americans by $1,000, yet they want to lower taxes for those in the 1%. The GOP is ready to tell 48 million seniors that they will no longer have access to their doctors. This is really outrageous. It's un-American and it's wrong. This jobs crisis is a national emergency and long-term unemployment is at unprecedented levels. We need an up or down vote on this Senate compromise. This recession, and yes, for many, it is still a depression. It's still hurting so many, many people. Half of all Americans are either in poverty, near poor, or low income. And it's really so sad that during this holiday season, Republicans are playing with the lives of millions. Why in the world... May I have 10
15 seconds?
Thank you very much, Mr. Crowley. What I want to know is why in the world won't you just bring the Senate bill to the floor and let the country see whose side you are on? Thank you again, and I yield the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume. Which bill, the House bill or the House bill as amended, has a bigger tax cut? Which bill? My friends on the other side seem to be confused. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the Joint Committee on Taxation analysis. I will not yield. I will not yield. I will enter into the record the Joint Committee on Taxation, the nonpartisan experts who analyze our legislation, their analysis of both proposals. And what they'll show that the House bill that extends the payroll tax for a year provides $120 billion in tax relief to the American worker. Well, the House bill, as amended by the Senate, only provides $20 billion of tax relief to the American worker because they only extend it for 2 months. Now, I've heard my colleagues talk about their 2-month extension guaranteeing a $1,000 tax cut. Well, that's just flat wrong. The Senate amendment caps the tax cut for that taxpayer at only $167. That's shortchanging hardworking Americans, and House Republicans won't stand for it. Let's be clear. The average American worker would have more than $800 in their pocket next year under the House bill. And with that, I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Gardner.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman from Michigan for yielding time. This argument seems a little bit confusing, I'm sure, to most people in America today. Several months ago, House Republicans were accused of just disagreeing with the president because, oh, geez, the idea was the president, so we wanted to disagree with him. Well, here we are today, agreeing with the president on a 1-year, a 12-month extension of the payroll tax holiday. Let me read a quote from what the president said. This Congress cannot and should not leave for vacation until they have made sure that the tax increase doesn't happen. Let me repeat. Congress should not and cannot go on vacation before they have made sure that working families aren't seeing their taxes go up by $1,000 and those who are out there looking for work don't see their unemployment insurance expire. We've passed a bill. The House bill that we passed with bipartisan support would provide $1,000 a year. I've heard it many times on the House floor as people come and say, this is $1,000 tax relief to the middle class. Not under your plan. The plan that the Democrats have put forward in the Senate, the plan put forward in the House by our Democratic colleagues would provide $160 worth of tax relief. $160 worth of tax relief is what they are fighting about today. So let's talk about real reform. Let's talk about real certainty that our economy needs. We've argued for $1,000 worth of tax relief to America's working families. You're talking about $160 of tax relief. You're willing to risk unemployment insurance? Willing to risk the payroll tax increase because you're insisting on a $160 tax break when we're sitting here, let's provide a $1,000 tax holiday? We can get our economy going again if we have the willingness to work with each other. And I hope that after today, there's willingness by our friends in the Senate to get the job done, to get our economy moving again, and to make sure that this country focuses on the real priorities. That's the men and women in this country looking for work, finding ways to make ends meet, and making sure that they're doing what's right for their families. I urge this body to do what's right, appoint conferees, get to doing the business of this country. Thank you.
Gentleman from New York.
I just want to remind Mr. Gardner that in Larimer County, the absence of passing this bill today will cause an increase of $1,126 in that county. And for the purposes of answering the gentleman from Michigan's question, and answer Ms. Lee for 10 seconds.
Thank you very much. I thank the gentleman for yielding. I just wanted to say perhaps the gentleman was confused about which bill I was talking about. I was talking about the Senate compromise, which 39 senators voted for, which the President supported, which came over to the House as a bipartisan bill. That's the bill I'm talking about.
Thank the gentlelady from California. With that, I yield the gentleman from Georgia 1 minute. Mr. Scott.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the yielding. Let me just address one point that our friends on the other side keep making about this 1 year. All of a sudden, they want 1 year. All of a sudden, they want to do what President Obama wants to do. You talk about certainty. You talk about uncertainty. Nothing could be more uncertain than not giving the American people the secure knowledge and the confidence at the end of the day that their taxes are not going up the 1st of January, that 2.2 million Americans will get their unemployment. We can do that today. The Senate has already given us that certainty. We're not talking about just a 2-month extension. We're simply talking about putting into place a compromise that we could get, that would get us into next year when we come back to finish the job and continue to get a 1-year extension. So this facade of you using this 1 year is nothing but a charade. You know it. Doesn't care what the time is. You don't want anything. 2 months, 1 year, 10 years.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Michigan.
I would just yield myself such time as I may consume, Mr. Speaker, and just let's get back to the facts. The facts are that the House bill as amended by the Senate is a 2-month bill. The tax relief under that bill for the average American worker is $167. The House bill extends unemployment insurance for a full year. The tax relief under that bill is $1,000. But don't listen to me. Look at the Joint Committee on Taxation, the nonpartisan body that analyzes our legislation for the impact of tax policy on taxpayers. That's what they say. That's what's in the record. And with that, I would yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Huizenga.
Gentleman from Michigan is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Camp. I appreciate that, and I'm a little confused myself. I saw one of our Senate colleagues from New York on television this morning talking about how we needed to pass this 2-month extension, and he would be the first one on an airplane back to Washington, D.C., so that we could negotiate a year-long deal. I'm confused. Why don't we just do that right now? That's what the American people expect. The American people expect us to get this deal done right now and to provide them some certainty for an entire year versus 2 months. Now, this Monday morning, I had a breakfast with my joint chambers of commerce in Holland and Zealand, and we had almost 500 people there. And when I asked the question, who here thinks that this 2-month extension is a good idea? Not a single hand went up. I said, okay, maybe I need to ask this a little differently. Who here thinks that this is a dumb idea to do a 2-month extension? Virtually every single hand in that breakfast went up. The American people are looking for long-term solutions. Employers are looking for long-term solutions. It's called quarterly reports, all right? I'm a small business owner. Oftentimes people have to file quarterly reports. We're not even doing them the service of giving them a full quarter to change their paperwork. We're doing 2 out of 3 months. Now, you want to talk about a burden on small business. I can tell you it is. And it's time for this House to go to work, which we have done. It's time for our Senate colleagues to do the exact same thing. Because guess what? My 3 employees, Irv, Dirk, and Larry, they're all at work today. Why isn't that good enough for the Senate? And there's 2 things that fundamentally need to be included in this. First and foremost is 12 months of certainty. Let's get through that debate of how we are going to offset the costs and how we are going to make sure that this works for the employee, the employer, those with a job, and those without a job. We also need to make sure that we don't lose sight of the Keystone Pipeline in here. Immediate 20,000 jobs that can be provided here in the United States. 20,000 jobs that could come to this country and help alleviate the need for these systems, the need for unemployment insurance. And it's the right thing to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yield myself just 15 seconds. I get it. You know, you guys were against it. I appreciate that. Now you're for the middle-class tax cut. You were against it, but now you're for it. But what I don't understand is why can't we just get these next 2 months and we'll come back. You know, you mentioned we're running out of time. Well, we're not in charge. You all are. You could have done this back in September or October or November. Now it's December. I get that you were against it. Now you're for it. We appreciate that. And with that, I will now yield.
The chair would remind all members to address the remarks.
I apologize, Mr. Speaker. I will do that through the chair. Would you like me to repeat that?
No.
Now, Mr. Speaker, with that, I will yield 1 minute. 1 minute to Mr. Butterfield.
Gentleman recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Let me thank the gentleman for yielding this brief time for me to respond. Mr. Speaker, I want to join my friend from Georgia, Mr. David Scott, in trying to expose some of the hypocrisy that we are seeing playing out here on the House floor today. I'm just so terribly disappointed that House Republicans want to ignore the overwhelming bipartisan Senate vote a few days ago, and you are failing to realize the devastation that millions of Americans will experience. They're going to lose their unemployment benefits. The average family is going to realize a $1,000 tax increase on January 1st. And let's not forget our doctors. There's some medical doctors sitting on that side of the chamber. Medical doctors in this country who treat Medicare patients will see a 27.3% decrease in their reimbursement rates. We can do better than this, Mr. Speaker. I urge my colleagues to reconsider their position. Let's go ahead and vote for the 2-month fix, and let's get on into February, and let's have this debate that you've been talking about over the last 2 hours. I thank the gentleman for the time. I yield back.
Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, could we just inquire as to time?
Gentleman from New York has 6 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Michigan has 10 minutes remaining.
I would just ask the gentleman from Michigan if he might like to use some of his time and maybe bounce out a little more.
I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Louisiana, Dr. Fleming.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank my friend, the gentleman, Mr. Camp, for giving me time to speak. I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, that this boils down to one of two choices here today. We're going to be either voting for a 2-month extension of the payroll tax or a 1-year extension of the payroll tax. We'll either be voting for a 2-month fix for reimbursement for physicians, healthcare providers in general, or we'll be voting for a 1-year fix. Now, for my money, it should be 1 year versus 2 months. I don't understand really what the problem is. But having said that, let me also mention to you that this affects me and many of my friends back home in this way. And that is, I'm a physician myself, have many friends in the health profession. They're asking me, John, why in the world do you keep us upset like this all the time? Why is it that we can't predict what our reimbursement rates are going to be from 1 month to another? They're desperately begging for us not only to extend that for a year, but for 2 years and even beyond that. They're desperately asking for a fix. And we've been promising them that we would try. So that's a lot behind what we're here today about, and that is to have a long-term solution to physicians. I also come from the small business sector. And I can tell you that when you do your tax deferrals or the income tax for your employees, that's usually done on a quarterly basis. In fact, it's always done on a quarterly basis. Well, how do you do it on a quarterly basis when you only have an extension for 2 months? So we have the Associated Builders and Contractors and many, Mr. Speaker, that say that this is just absolutely, flatly untenable. So I encourage that both chambers vote today to be in favor of sending this back to the Senate, have the conferees get together. Let's do it the way the Constitution asked us to do it. Thank you. Now you're back.
At this time,
Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Ruff.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
Well, I thank you, my friend from Michigan, chairman of Ways and Means. Let's face it, Mr. Speaker. People across the country are not very happy, and they are frankly so tired of Washington games. They know that we have a divided government. They don't want a deal. They want a solution. Yes, they want to reform unemployment. Yes, they want to extend the payroll tax deduction. And yes, they want a doc fix. Without the doc fix, we put literally millions of Americans in jeopardy of decent health care because their physicians are not going to have the proper reimbursement for Medicare. But coming from the state of Michigan, I know that what Americans want most are jobs. This bill, the Republican alternative, provides jobs for Keystone, 20,000 shovel-ready jobs in a $7 billion private investment right away. Boilermac regs, something that will protect as many as 200,000 businesses across the country. And Spectrum, the sale of the Spectrum will create literally perhaps as many as 50 to 100,000 jobs as well. The last Congress didn't deal with the budget, and we spent the first couple of months of this year dealing with what we thought was Lucy in the football, bringing up a continuing resolution, watching it be extended for a week or two, and then coming back with another one. If we don't deal with these issues today, we're going to have the same trouble in the next year, in the next couple of months. So let's stop playing Lucy in the football. Let's get a real solution to a problem that Americans want us to solve. Please support the Republican alternative on this and respect the wishes of the House. And I yield back my time.
Gentleman from New York.
I appreciate the gentleman's comments about the only games the American people want to see this holiday season is football, but the reindeer games that are going on in this House are something the American people do not want to see any more of. With that, I will yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Sheila Jackson-Lee.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, we are doing what the American people have asked us to do. I thank the gentleman from New York for championing the cause of the American people, and I thank our whip, Mr. Hoyer, for understanding that we need an up or down vote on the Senate compromise and a motion for this conference that will not occur to do what is right for the American people. I've already said that the holiday season for so many has just gone up in smoke. The lights on the Christmas tree have just burst and the tree is burning. The candles throughout the house are now down and smoldering. And people are bemoaning the condition that this Washington Republicans have put them in. Mothers, single mothers, families without are now begging for a lifeline. And the gigantic ship, the cruise ship, is cruising on by and allowing them to drown in the dusty and dark waters of this land. I don't understand where there is no mercy, where there is no understanding. My good friend from Michigan will see that his constituents, 70,000 of them, will lose unemployment benefits. The speaker from Ohio, 58,000 will lose unemployment benefits. Texas, 134,000. They understand that this is smoke and mirrors. I said in the Rules Committee, at 7:05 last night, we had a right to vote on the Senate bill that was put before us. That rule was changed midstream. The American people need to understand we had in line through the Rules Committee controlled by the Republicans to put on the agenda for us to vote up or down on the Senate bill. We were not allowed to do that because they thought the Senate bill for reasonable people might pass. They thought that Senator Lugar's words might prevail in the ears of the Washington Republicans that said, do what is right for the American people. They thought Senator Snow's words might prevail, which is to say, we all have disagreement, but let us not hold up the unemployment.
15 seconds.
Thank you. Let us not hold up the unemployment. Let us not hold up the payroll tax because those individuals said they didn't want it in the first place. Mr. President, if you have executive order powers, let's just pass it. Let's just rule on it. Let us come back and deal with it for a year because they know they're not serious, and I'm not going to see the holiday season go up in smoke for the American people. That is a disgrace.
Gentlelady's time is expired. Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, at this time I have no further speakers. I'm prepared to close if the gentleman is prepared to close.
We have 2 additional speakers, including myself, and with that I will yield to Mr. Cohen for, well, 1 minute to Mr. Cohen.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very sad day for the American people. There was an opportunity with the Democrats in the Senate and the Republicans in the Senate, 89 of them, including my senior Senator Lamar Alexander, Senator Heller, former colleague and classmate in this class, Senator Lugar, Senators Collins and Snow and others came together. They said we need to protect the American people, protect the opportunity to see doctors when you're on Medicare, get unemployment insurance, and keep the tax break.
They came together and said, let's do it for 60 days. We can come back later, and then we can work on it for the rest of the year. They knew what was possible within the time allotted to it. Unfortunately, my colleagues on the other side don't realize what time makes available. There is no possibility of the Senate coming back and having a conference committee. They are saying bah humbug to the compromise and the bipartisanship that we saw in the Senate. It's an unfortunate day for the American people, and I'm sorry for my folks who will not be able to get doctors to treat them, unemployment compensation, or a tax break. With that, I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, I do have an additional speaker, and I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Georgia, Dr. Gingrey.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I rise in opposition to this Democratic motion to instruct the conferees, assuming that they're going to instruct the conferees to adopt the Senate amendment. Clearly, this House has spoken in a bipartisan way with H.R. 3630. In fact, we will follow this debate with a resolution, H.Res. 501, restating the provisions of H.R. 3630, which basically gives that tax break to 160 million middle-income Americans for a full year. It extends the unemployment insurance to 99 weeks for those who have been out of work for more than 6 months for an additional year. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Speaker, it gives the assurance of the physicians in this country that provide care for our blessed senior citizens under the Medicare program that their reimbursement will not be cut 27%. No, indeed, it not only mitigates that cut, but it pluses it up by 1% for 2 full years. This gives the doctors the assurance that they know that they can continue to treat Medicare patients. I can't help but believe, Mr. Speaker, that the other side of the aisle agrees with all 3 of these provisions. It's beyond me that they would disagree with the job-creating Keystone XL pipeline, 120,000 plus jobs. It's hard for me to understand how they could oppose any of that. No, I think really this is all about how we pay for it. What the Democrats want to do, Mr. Speaker, is they want to charge increased taxation on the job creators in this country. What we want to do is pay for it by freezing the pay of all these federal employees, yes, including ourselves, for 3 additional years in a very responsible way. And other provisions on this side that make sense for the American people. Reject this motion to instruct, and I yield back.
And inquire as to how much time is left.
The gentleman from New York has 2.5 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Michigan has 4 minutes remaining.
Thank you. And with that, I'm prepared to close. Oh, you have an additional speaker? Okay.
There's a gentleman here.
In the meantime, while we're waiting for that speaker, I would just remind Mr. Gingrey that his constituents in Cobb County will see a potential increase of $1,258 in their taxes in the absence of passing this bill today.
Who yields time?
All right. I'm prepared to close.
Do you have no further speakers?
Gentleman from New York.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my friend from Michigan as well for this debate. I listened very closely and very intently to the words of Speaker Boehner, a man who I have tremendous respect for, and I know that he's having some difficult times with this side of the aisle. I know he'd like to be able to wrap up business for the end of the year and be able to move on into next year to do good things for the American people, but the rejection by his caucus of the compromise bill that was passed in the Senate is preventing him, and I think preventing some of the like-minded members of the Republican side of the aisle to pass the Senate bill and go home for the holidays. I also listened very intently to the Speaker when he said that the passage of this bill today would only be a 2-month extender, that somehow by just passing this, it would only mean about 160 some odd dollars for the average American worker in tax savings. I would just suggest the absence of doing anything is a $1,000 increase on average to the average working middle-class American today. A $1,000 increase, the absence of doing nothing. Now, we all know the Senate can't get 60 votes to even to say that December 25th is Christmas. We understand that. They've gone home for the holidays already. They're not coming back. So we either pass this bill today or we see that no bill will pass and an increase in middle-class taxes will take place. Now, you will argue that how did we get here? I don't know. I'm in the minority. You're in the majority. The President suggested extending this payroll tax cut back in September. In fact, he wanted to enhance it back in September. But we didn't take it up then with the jobs bill. Quite frankly, we haven't taken up a jobs bill yet in this House. A full year has almost expired, and not a jobs bill on the floor to put Americans back to work. I listened again to my colleague, Mr. Fattah, from Pennsylvania, when he said, he reeled off a number of positive things that are happening today, that home builders' numbers are up, that the economy is improving, that we've seen jobs increase in this country, people who are on unemployment insurance decreasing. That's happening right now. Why is it, I ask, why is it when something good happens to the American people and to our economy, somehow it's perceived as being bad for the Republican majority? Isn't that sad? That somehow that's the sense that people have? Mr. Speaker, I hope that we can pass this bill, send the American people a message that we can work together on their behalf, send this bill, come back and make a year extended in January, February.